I'd like to invite Ms. Vidya Balan and Professor Lakshmi Lingam on the stage now.
Happy to have someone like you really doing what you do. So my first question is, you've seen in this study that only 23% of women, are there in films, and very few of them actually play lead roles. Whereas fairly early, you have broken that zincs and you have become a lead actor, and you carry several films on your shoulder. So what has been your arch? At what point did you crack that thing?
Yeah, firstly, may I just say a big hi to everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to see so many people on a rainy day. I was also expecting very few people when, because it's been raining since the morning, but it's wonderful to be here. And one of my professors, Shilpa Farke, is here, who heads the Media Studies Department at TIS. Y'all are really doing some wonderful work, so thank you for that. The change for me happened because I was very restless doing the kind of work I was doing. It was early years of my career, and I was playing roles of the romantic interest in a lot of my early films. But it wasn't satisfying me. I wanted more substance. And therefore, after, a lot of my films worked very well commercially. So I know that there were some people around me who said, why do you want to really topple the apple cart? Why don't you you're getting good work, continue to do it. I said, good work is very subjective. I feel like I'm not contributing anything. And I think I was feeling like I was sleepwalking through some of those roles in films because I felt it was this anyone can do. I was mistaken, I have to say, that there is great talent in doing what your quintessential Bollywood heroine does with conviction, but I couldn't do it. And at that point, I was offered a film called Ishqiya. The role of a woman who had agency. The role of a woman who owned her sexuality, who was very, she was, your femme fatale and all of that, but there was a simmering strength in her. When I was offered that role, I thought, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for. But I was told that, it's not a commercial film. A female actor gets one such role in her career, which is of substance, and you do it and you get the awards and you go ahead. So I was like, whatever it is, I don't care. I'm doing this film. I remember they also felt, there were some people, when I say they, some people around you who mean well, but who don't necessarily, anyway. So I was told that it may be an art house film, and that distinction I've never understood. But I said, I'm going to go ahead and do the film. And I felt like it had just been 3 years since I started my career, and I felt like I was reborn as an actor. I felt like, oh my God, this is my purpose. I'm actually living another human being's life. It was not, I knew this person. It's not like sometimes I came out of films and I didn't know who I had played. It was that not well defined. But here I felt like she was a living, breathing woman who had this deep desire for revenge and did not stop at anything to get that. And I said, okay, now let's see how this film does, and then, if work comes my way, great, I'll do it. Otherwise, even if this is this is my so-called last film, so be it. But because I enjoyed the process. But I think I was at the right place at the right time, and things were turning, because things were turning around us. Suddenly, this process hasn't happened overnight. It's been happening, it's still happening. And in cinema, I really believe is a reflection of what happens around us. So that change was actually, now there were people who were writing stories where women were finding their voice, where women were coming of age, where women were, you know, doing as they pleased with their bodies. And I think it was just one thing led to another. After Ishqiya, I got offered No One Killed Jessica, which was again, so I think it just set the ball in motion, and here I am. You know, so it was not just about me. I think that change was actually happening all around us and was slowly, at that time it got reflected in cinema. So I was very, very fortunate.
Absolutely amazing.
And as you realize, if you ask me a question, I can just go.
But it's so wonderful to just see you all talking, you know. So it's like half I can hear, half I'm only seeing you.
I hope that's a compliment. Thank you.
Just so much admiration. Yeah, so the other question is, you know, in our study we found that the distinct gender pattern where the top box office films are all about wars and crime and politics and corruption and things, underworld, etc. And the women-centric films, for various reasons, were definitely engaging with looking at families and sexuality, things to do with, you know, aspirations and how probably they are being not allowed to do what they want, etc. Whereas in your case, you actually have broken into the war, crime, and your forthcoming film also is one of that. So again, how do you find that kind of acceptance to do those roles?
I don't think it's about, of course, success opens up opportunities for you because people are then, it's the business of cinema at the end of the day, and then people feel like, okay, maybe we can take a punt and invest in a film like this, for example, about a mathematician, Shakuntala Devi, or about a forest officer, Sherni. And these were backed by a very reputed production house, Vikram Malhotra, but also by Prime Video, which is something which is, you know, I think that's noteworthy, right? And then now I'm doing a film called Niyat where I play a detective. So I think it's really about, those stories are being written because I wish I had the talent to write, I don't. But when those stories come to me, I grab them with all my might, which is why again and again I cannot emphasize that film is but a reflection of what's happening around us. The more, and you know, OTT platforms have definitely opened up the canvas for us to be able to tell women-led stories. I do think that the reason women-led stories are so personal and yet we're not talking about war and those kind of things yet in a big way is because our stories are just being told. It is our personal experiences. It's, you know, we are still, a small fraction of us is still living our lives the way we want to. You know, there are still so many women who look at these films and say, oh my God, maybe I could go off on my honeymoon on my own. You know, it's still, it's at a very nascent stage. Before we concern ourselves with worldly issues, I think it's about what's happening with ourselves, with our bodies, with our dreams, with our families, about how we are navigating our lives, I think, which is why it's more personal, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yes.
But, you know, when, in my case, I've had the opportunity to do that, for example, in Mission Mangal, where I played a scientist celebrating the mission to Mars, where there were so many women scientists involved. I think it's fantastic because there you got to see both sides. They're not women who are only scientists, like, I don't mean to, I want to say this correctly, I hope I am, but you know, they are homemakers also, but they are scientists. They're, you know, planning and executing the biggest mission from ISRO at that point of time. So I think it's fantastic that we're telling these stories because on our lives, we're not divorced from our personal lives, from what happens at home. You know, like in Mission Mangal, that scientist is making rotis that day at home because her maid hasn't shown up. and she's having to make sure that the electricity bill is paid and her father-in-law's medicines are laid out for him. And then she goes to execute this big mission. You know, whereas with most men, the reality is that they don't have to do that. And that's unfortunate, but we'll get to that in another, hopefully, 50 years.
In fact, what stood out for me in that film is the fact that you actually give a pushback. You know, when your husband gaslights you and says you're not taking care of the home, your son is going wayward, this and that, you actually says, but what are you doing? You know, what's your responsibility in all this? And I think that pushback is vital in films. In every occasion, if the scripts can give the pushback, that gives the signal about how these are not okay and women can question it. And I think...
Sorry to have interrupted, but that was written by Balki, R. Balki. So I think that's also very important to note, that it was a man who wrote that scene. You know, so we also need more men
of that kind.
We just can't, we shouldn't be only driving the change.
Yes. True.
Sorry I interrupted you.
No problem. So my last question is, you know, the data behind the screen is definitely not very encouraging.
Yeah, I have to tell you that when I read it, I was shocked because the reality to me seemed different. But obviously, you all have done in-depth research. Yes, please.
Yeah, so what would you think needs to be done by the film fraternity to bring about changes there? You know, whether it's to do with posh committees, having the, you know, creche facilities, having safe workplaces, women being dropped if it is late, things like that that we are looking at, you know, need to be done. What do you
don't think we have creche facilities yet, but definitely posh committees on every production that I've been involved in. And so I can tell you that a lot of production houses are following that. And the third thing you brought up was...
how do we bring about broader changes?
Yeah, I think it's just about... I don't think the answer is simple, and I don't think I'm in a position to furnish solutions like that, but it has to be holistic. It has to be, and I don't see why it's a bad thing if women are hiring more women. Eventually that will percolate into the men-led films also. I am seeing that change there. For example, on Mission Mangal, we had far many more women than I've seen on any commercial film, you know, behind the scenes. And I am seeing more DOPs, editors, and so I was a bit surprised when you said, actually, and writers, I was a bit surprised when it said that there are not as many scriptwriters or editors, women scriptwriters or editors, but I think the change is happening. What we all have to do is look at a person for their ability to what they bring to the table and not judge them by their gender, you know, whatever it is. I know it's easier said than done. We're working against the, you know, it's a lifetime of conditioning, but, and I think within the industry, I know of lots of people who are making small efforts, but I think every drop makes the ocean, right? So everything will contribute to bringing about change.
So thank you very much, and we look forward to having more conversations with you, and also see that you spearhead a lot of changes so that several young actors will take more from your
Thank you.
thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Nitin Tej Ahuja. Oh God, wait. Mr. B.N. Tiwari, President, Federation of Western Indian Cine Employees. Ms. Sucharita Tyagi. Think I've got.
विद्या जी राइट में।
थैंक यू अरुण आपके मैसेज के लिए।
आप ऐसे अच्छे अच्छे पिक्चर डाला कीजिए, बहुत ही अच्छे लगते हैं।
Thank
And
you.
ज़्यादातर बातें तो हो चुकी है जेंडर इक्वालिटी पर, आज हम सभी यहाँ पर इस मौके पर प्रेजेंट हैं। जेंडर इक्वालिटी की प्रॉब्लम पूरी दुनिया में है, ना कि सिर्फ
दुनिया भर में है, पर चीज़ें बदल रही हैं, उस पे हमको अमल करना चाहिए कि इतना फर्क है पहले से। जितनी ज़्यादा हम इस बारे में बात करेंगे, जागरूकता फैलेगी और बदलाव आएगा। तो मैं आई एम वेरी होपफुल दैट थिंग्स आर चेंजिंग फॉर द बेटर।
मैम जैसे कि OTT आ गया है, अभी बहुत सारे प्लेटफॉर्म्स हो गए हैं, तो इससे क्या मदद मिल रही है?
यही कि जितनी हमारी कहानियाँ पर्दे पर नहीं बन पाती, वो OTT के लिए तो बना पा रहे हैं हम, क्योंकि OTT पर हर तरह का ऑडियंस है। थिएटर में जब, हालांकि मुझे दुख होता है जब कोई कहता है कि अच्छा इस टाइप की फिल्म थिएटर में नहीं चलेगी, पर एटलीस्ट वो कहानी सुना तो पा रहे हैं हम।
Vidya ma'am, we keep speaking about
Hi, I can see it.
Ma'am, we keep speaking about how how the industry needs to change, how it needs to be inclusive, and that's very correct. But does it start at a much more grassroots level from the families?
It definitely does. That's where the change has to happen. But you know, we are hoping that it comes outward in, if not inward out. Yeah? Thank you all very much. Bye. Bye.
I'm loving the